A 2011 Jeep JK with a drivetrain noise. A lot of people can't find it. Dealership said they couldn't find it. They sent him to a four-wheel off-road place. They couldn't find it. Transmission's already been rebuilt once. Another person said possible transfer case, but I think I know what the problem is. Actually, I'm positive I know what the problem is. We're going to take it back to the shop and we're going to pull the front drive shaft out and see what we got going on there. But if you can hear that noise, a lot of you JK owners have this problem because of the angle of the transfer case and the angle of the drive shaft itself. So we're going to take it back to the shop and we're going to take it apart and see what's going on down there. Alright, now that we've got the Jeep JK in the shop and here at 5150 Motorsports, I'm going to go ahead and jack up the front diff. That way I can spin the tire freely, and I believe I can simulate the noise in the air. Hopefully I can. I'm pretty sure it's a front drive shaft. So let me get this thing up in the air and we'll go from there. Alright, well, here's the problem. Right here we have what they call a CV joint. CV joints are most commonly found in compact cars, minivans, and quite a few other vehicles. Not for a Jeep. Especially when you do a 4-inch lift kit, 35s, puts a lot of stress on this joint here. When you're out on the beach, or even the snow, or even wheeling, rock crawling, doing whatever the heck you're going to do, it puts a lot of stress on that boot. Once that boot gets torn, all the grease comes flying out. As you can see, we've got grease all up on the floorboard. And once that bearing, once that CV joint is dried out, it's no longer any good. It starts to make noise, chatters, and it just sounds like somebody's taking a cutting saw to it, metal to metal. So we're going to go ahead and mark the drive shaft right here. That way when we put it back together, and we're also going to mark the yoke down here at the axle. That way when it goes back together, it's all back together the same way it was when it came out. Alright, so it's pretty simple. I've already taken a few bolts out just to make this video a little bit shorter. That way people don't get completely bored of it. But it's also going to be very informative to everyone in the Jeep world. These are 8mm bolts right here. You can also remove your skid plate for easier access if you'd like, but you don't really need to. Just got to break them loose. Like I said, there's a few bolts already out just to make this a little faster. If you've just driven the Jeep, be extremely careful because right here is the exhaust. You will burn yourself, which I have done in the past, and it doesn't quite feel too well. Alright, here we are on our last bolt. What I wanted to point out to everybody is that the transfer case for the front drive shaft actually faces upward. Anytime you put a lift kit on a Jeep, whether it's 3 inches, 4 inches, 8 inches, whatever you're going to do on it, I would highly recommend getting rid of this yoke here and getting, they have a kit out there on the market. I don't remember what the name of it is, but it's a new yoke. And it comes with a double carbon front drive shaft. All you gotta do is give them measurements and they'll send you the right shaft, the right length with the correct U-joint and everything for your front differential. And that will alleviate, actually, that will eliminate that problem, and we won't have this CV joint going out anymore. Alright, so let me get this shaft out and get it on the bench and we'll start tearing into it. Alright, here we are on our last bolt here. Getting ready to take this shaft out of this JK and get it up on the bench and take a good look at that CV joint that belongs in a freaking minivan. This joint is also real common in the old body Dodge Durango, and they use that on their transfer case, and of course it's a Chrysler product, and they thought that it would be cool to use, and of course here's the end result. Alright, let me get a hammer and a chisel and we'll get that out of there. Alright. Once you've got it enough away from the transfer case, you go ahead and get a little pry bar, pry it out, give it a turn, some more, and voila, it's out. There's our baby, right there. Alright, now that we've got this thing on the bench, you can clearly see that that boot has torn completely. And right inside there is what they call a CV joint. CV stands for constant velocity. Means it can go more directions than a U-joint, and it's supposedly more efficient than a U-joint. But as you can see, this is not so efficient in this application for a Jeep JK. Alright, so we have a bad CV joint. We have a rebuild kit here, found at your neighborhood parts store, wherever you may be, whether it's Napa, O'Reilly's, AutoZone, any of them places, they carry it. Let's get this cap off of here and see what we got going on inside. Hold on, let me just make sure. Alright, so we're going to take this cap off of here. Doesn't matter if you destroy it, the kit comes with a brand new one. Of course, this thing was crimped on here from the factory. And there we have it. Here's the inside of your cap. As you can see, it's completely dry. No more grease left in that baby. Alright. I'm going to go ahead and turn the shaft around, that way you can film from this side looking this way. Alright, now that we've got that cap off of there, you can clearly see that this thing is rusted really bad. Dried out. Those bearings, those ball bearings inside there, they're not supposed to be that dry. This should be packed with grease pouring out right now. But it's not. And any longer would have definitely destroyed this shaft. So we're going to take our snap ring pliers. And we're going to take that snap ring right off of there like that. Set that aside. Now this should just walk itself, walk right off of there. Okay. There you have your old bearing, your old CV joint, which is now garbage. Ready? Alright, as you can see, it's pretty rusty inside there. Those bearings are all junk, dry. This, after you get your snap ring off, it slides right off of there. You can hear that. That's not a good thing to hear. Okay, that boot is clearly torn. It's been torn for a long time. And here you have all of your splines. If that thing was to get any drier or go any longer, it would actually lock that up and either take out your transfer case or take out the drive shaft. If it takes out the drive shaft, of course it's going to take out any weak link of the whole entire Jeep. Hopefully it doesn't take out the front diff. Alright, so I'm going to take the remainder of the boot off. Just take your dikes and you cut your band right here. Band comes off. Cut the rest of your boot. Voila, just like that. Now you have your complete shaft that's completely clean. Take and make sure that there's no gall marks in it from that CV joint wearing on it or running on it, bone dry. Seems to me that it looks pretty good. All the splines are still intact, none of them are chipped or broken. Alright, everything looks good. And cut. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we're going to unbox our parts. Here we have our grease for CV joints. Okay, this is a special type of grease. You can't just use any kind of grease. It has to be for a CV joint. Okay. Here's our new bearing, which you can see it looks a whole lot better than the other one already. Doesn't move very well yet because it's not lubed. This is your cup with your boot on it already molded into the cup. Your new band, gasket material, because you have a gasket that goes around this cup here to keep water out and all the other elements. This one comes with new hardware, but you can use your factory hardware if you'd like. It doesn't hurt it. Right there's your new snap ring that goes at the end of your axle to hold this all together. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and pre-pack this with a little bit of grease, both sides. Now there is an inside and an outside. You look at this one. That ridge is completely gone from it being dry. That's crazy. Alright, so we have this side up. And this side this side's going to go to the shaft, this side's going to go out. Alright, so let's get some grease in there. What you want to do is just put a little grease there, a little grease in there. Now what you want to do is you want to take it over work it like that. Try to get all that grease in those bearings. See how much freer it's moving now? Nice and quiet. There's your bearings packed. Now what you do is you take it, you turn it over, and you pack this side full of grease. comes a new cap. Okay. Alright, as you can see, there's a little bit of a difference here. That way you don't put it on backwards. I always leave this cup on here. That way it tells me which way it was actually on the drive shaft itself. So you take a look at your new bearing, see how it's flush here. There's no ridge. That's going to be, this is your boot side. Okay, this side here has the same ridge as this one. This is going to be your transfer case side. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to take your gasket and you place it like that. It should stay in place. Of course it's not, because it's going to fight me the whole way. Okay, just remember, this is your cap side. This is going to go on here like that. That's at the very end of this whole deal. Alright, so now let's just take this off here for a second. I'm going to turn it over and we're going to put that there in the picture, and we're going to fill that up with grease. Add a little more since it's down inside there now. Stop. Alright, now that we've got, this is our boot side with our cap, I went ahead and put the gasket inside there. Factory one, I'm sure it's got one in there. I'm not taking it apart because I don't want to mess everywhere. Just match your holes, press it into place. If you want, you can put a couple bolts in it to make sure that it's lined up 100%, just like that. Okay, that half is done. Now you can take your new bearing with your new boot and cap. Make sure you take a little bit of grease from here and you can put it on the boot. That way it slides in a little easier, slides over the shaft a little easier, and there's no issue. Go ahead and just slide it right over like that. Line up your splines. You want to bring your boot all the way down to that lip right there. You might have to tap this down in there a little bit. Do not use a steel punch. Use brass if you can, or a very soft metal. I recommend brass because it's very soft. Okay. Tap it down until you get to your snap ring ridge. Almost there. All right. I believe we're there. Now, Take your snap ring pliers, put them in like that. Make sure it snaps into place. And you can take your small punch again and tap it down to make sure it's right inside that ridge. You'll be able to tell because your snap ring will actually be closed all the way and rotate easily. Alright, now that that part's done, we come around to the other side here and we're going to slide our boot all the way on. Or at least try to. Try not to puncture the boot. Got it. Alright, like I said, carefully work the boot down. Try not to pinch it, puncture it, because then it pretty much defeats the purpose of replacing it. What you want to do is you want to get it down in that ridge. That way it seats. There you go. Take and wipe off your excess grease. Now if you're doing this for a customer, the cleaner it is, the better it looks on you. If you're doing it for yourself and you really don't care, and your Jeep's a wheeling rig, hey, leave it dirty. But do not let dirt get inside this at all. Otherwise you'll have the same problem you're running into now. Alright, now that we've got that in place, we can go ahead and put our outside cap on. Our gasket. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the rest of our grease that we have left over. They send you the right amount of grease for this application. It's all pre-measured out. So use every bit of it. That's pretty much it. Now, so there's no misalignment, no issues, take a couple of your bolts, line up your cap, and voila. Simple as that. Take these, take your channel locks, or vice grips, whatever you guys call them out there. Squeeze that on. Make sure you get it even all the way around. Alright, no damage, no galls, all lined up. Check every hole. If you've got two, you've got them all. And that part is done. Okay, now that we've got our caps on, our bearing is in place, moves freely, no more ratcheting noise, no more steel to steel noise. It's nice and quiet. We've got our boot sealed up on this side. Sorry guys, I skipped a step for you, but that's always a pain in the ass for me, and I'll let you guys figure that part out. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take this, I'm going to put it back in the Jeep. Alright, the best way to do this, the easiest way to do this is of course put your transfer case in neutral. That way it can spin freely. You don't have to jack up the whole front diff, but you can jack up one side, and as you can see, the front yoke will spin with one wheel off the ground. That way it's easier to line both ends up. And don't forget your marks that you put on before on your front U-joint. The back one at the transfer case is not going to matter anymore because it is now replaced with a new bearing. Alright, so here we go. The install. Let's see. Find your mark down here on your drive shaft and your yoke. Put one bolt in to kind of help you hold it in case you don't have an extra hand to hold it with. Then you can spin it. No problem there. Now, what you can do is bring this up in place. Put another bolt down here. Alright. Now, like I said, you can use your stock hardware or you can use the hardware they send you, depending on how you feel and how well your hardware looks. Take one, line it up. Don't forget the little doodad clips here, whatever these little U deals are called. Line it up with one you can see. And there we go. Alright, we might have to tap that on there a little bit with a hammer. Let me grab the hammer real quick. We're gonna have to edit this one big time. Yeah, stop it. Alright, here we go. We're on our last few bolts here. We'll go ahead and put a little bit more oomph on them. I mean, if you can do this with a 1/4" ratchet, that means not a whole lot of torque needs to be on these things. And like I said, you know, you can find your sweet spot and get your ratchet in there and your socket and everything. And it's a relatively simple job. Just having the correct tools to do it is what counts. Looks like I've gone all the way around one time. Now that those are tight, what I like to do is I like to take my paint marker here and I like to mark it. That way it shows that it's been tightened down. In the event of anything ever coming loose or somebody else taking it apart, you know, it's kind of like cover your own butt and say, hey, look, there's my marks, I know it was tight. And it's also good for the customer. They sleep better at night knowing that everything's tight underneath their Jeep and it's been gone through, or any vehicle I should say. Just a simple hash mark like that on every bolt shows that it's tight. And now we're going to move on to the front yoke and tighten those down, and then we'll put this thing on the ground and go drive it. Alright, as you can see, I lined up the mark again that I put on there previously when I took the drive shaft off. Go ahead and put your factory hardware back in. Like I said in the very beginning of this video, there is a kit that will eliminate that yoke at the transfer case, and it comes with a new drive shaft which has a cardan joint in it, a double cardan joint, which meaning it has two U-joints with a ball in the center, and it will rotate many different directions with no stress. Some of them are serviceable, some of them aren't. And we'll get to the serviceable part at the end of this video. Alright, now that we're down to the last bolt here, I'm tightening everything up. What you want to do is you want to take your pry bar, you put it right here in your arm, get it to where it's going to lock that front differential up a little bit, and put some torque on it. Don't let it slip off and hit you in the face, and you'll be fine. Rotate it again. There you go. One more rotation. Double check it. Alright. Once again, once everything's tightened down, mark your bolts. Alright, now that we are ready to set her down on the ground and go for a drive. Alright, once again, problem solved here at 5150 Motorsports. Drive shaft is nice and quiet, new CV joint, all greased up. Customer will be happy to have a nice quiet ride again.